Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us at the Goethe Institute today for the TBA 21 convening. I'm not going to say much right now because I first want to introduce to you Julieta Aranda, who is co-organizing and leading this event together with me. And so I'll let her take over.
Well, hi. I actually am here on behalf of Chus Martinez, who could not be here, but who was the person in charge of doing this, as she has been working with TBA 21 on, as the expedition coordinator for this series of ocean trips that TBA 21 has been doing with a number of artists twice a year. And it's quite interesting to try to understand what's the purpose of, as artists, you know, to go and like try to be looking at the ocean and thinking about the ocean together in this kind of environment. And like some of that, I mean, like of course when one thinks of the ocean, certain ideas can come up and certain concepts come up, like you start thinking about water being fluid and, you know, things that are ecology, things that are pretty obvious, but it's also something, and then you realize quite quickly that all the problems that come with the territory, and also quite quickly you come to realize that you are not the person that's going to fix them, because at the end of the day you are an artist. But so what it is that you are doing in this situation, and I think it's not so much about solving the problems, but about learning how to look at them and learning how to live with them. It's like the idea of developing imaginations and a kind of political imaginations, let's say, modes of living, modes of looking, and together with Chus Martinez, we wrote a little text about the convening. The convenings are these are some like events that are organized by TBA 21 Academy, and which is a way of presenting the thoughts and the ideas that come out of the expeditions, let's say, in some way or another. And the title of this convening is "The Ocean is on Air," and now I'll read you a little bit of what Chus and I put together. That says, "The ocean is on air. We tend to forget about the states of matter. We see water in the oceans and in the melting glaciers, but we forget about the clouds. The ocean is air. The oxygen we breathe comes from phytoplankton, ocean plants. We learn to call the planet blue, not just because of the oceans, but because of the air we breathe. We also need to learn to see the complex, what happened here? I'm sorry, it's missing something. But because of the air we breathe, period, yeah. We need to learn to see the complex dance that weaves together all the life forms that share the planet. How the air produced by plants in the oceans relates to the air produced by plants on Earth. And while we are looking into this, we should also look at life in all its forms, states of matter, states of life. It seems that we are only able to give agency to the animal kingdom. Our political imagination does not extend to plants, does not extend to water. We ascribe to them a strange and passive status, even though they are everything but passive. But other forms of active production and their contributions to life do not resonate in our worldview, nor do they shape our values. Yet they should, because this failure of our anthropocenic approach may be blinding us to the most essential exchanges of life, the dancing where we are keeping alive together, in which we sustain each other. Perhaps the processes of decolonization can use the ideas of photosynthesis, pollination, and osmotic absorption. We are all surface, all water, all porous membranes, to reimagine how we could experience new forms of the political without destroying the world in the process of learning how to live in it. And now I think we can, this is sort of like trying to frame also what's happening in the conversations and what the work of the artists and thinkers that are presenting their thoughts today are working on. I think that, you have the program and you can see who is participating. There is like Cecil Tolas, there is
we're going to be introducing progressively through the day. I'd also just like to stress that in the nature of the TBA 21 convenings, where there is actually an active redistribution of knowledge between artists but also scientific thinkers, between choreographers, and this is the kind of dynamic element that was particularly attractive for us to bring this kind of model of programming to Sri Lanka and to integrate it very much within the festival's framework. But what we've done in discussion with Marcos Rehman, the director of TBA 21 Academy, and also with Chus Martinez, and more recently with Julieta, is to think about how some of the practitioners that we invite specifically for this event would, in a sense, be in dialogue with some of the artists that we are already working with since more than a year now. So the kind of framework is going to stay with this notion of the senses being activated through the course of the few hours that we will spend together. So I'm going to introduce Cecil Tolas, who we are really happy to have with us here in Colombo. Cecil is an artist, but also a smell theorist, a smell designer. She's a Norwegian artist living in Berlin since many years, where she has her smell lab. And she has an amazing sort of history of lecturing and working with clients that include corporates to students to working in refugee camps, working with architects and other scientific experts as well around the world. Here she is developing her TBA 21 commission work, but it's also very much a local way of seeing and sensing this coastline. Cecile will tell us more about this. She's already been to the west and to the south of the island, and we really hope this is one of many more trips in which Cecile will smell the coast and bring it alive for us. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming to this. How are you? Excuse me. Yes, I am going to represent a sense of smell in its utter and most amazing capacity. I will take you through a small introduction, what I do, how I do what I do, my passion and then my pain with using the interface nose for the purpose to understand the world of multiple reality. We live in this world of really more and more realities, from fake to virtual, and still we are equipped with an amazing hardware called the body and amazing softwares called the senses. The senses knows more than any kind of digital sensor will ever do. And what makes us human is that we have emotions. The senses have a capacity to integrate this emotion and memory in very quick processing. We are born with a setup of very alert senses, and we use them very efficiently from 0 till 13. When we record and when we try to understand what life and our surrounding is all about, then this sense primarily take over. We start to look at things. We observe the world. We now also observe screens, and in the best scenario, we touch those screens. But our body is suffering. The biggest illness of our time is disembodiment. We are not at all with the world because we are not at all in touch with our senses. And it's like if you're not in touch with your body and your muscles are not fit, you suffer. And the same should be according to the senses. Not only we look at the world too much and hardly understand it, but we also tend to clean up and sanitize and sterilize most of it. Shiny surfaces is transposition of clean in very many areas of the world. But this kind of reality is also a reality. This little child swimming in the middle of garbage in the ocean. And what is amazing with the sense of smell, we are born general, we are born neutral, and there is no notion of bad and good until education come and tell you this. So this little child still have a smile in her face and get used to the disturbing circumstances she play in. We should not forget these kind of realities. I took off a journey as an organic chemist, looking into what was mentioned previously, the air that we breathe. We breathe up to 24,000 times a day, move 12.7 cubic meter air with our breathing. Every breath contains invisible components, nanomolecules, going through your system, going through your nose, going through your skin, providing information about a person, a city, a planet, an ocean, long before you ever see it. That information triggers quickest time error in the brain, memory, and emotion. Amazing capacity hidden in the sense of smell and memory. Smell is the purest information, as I said, and the brain can be programmed and be fed in a very different way if you give it a chance to be done so. So these molecules, if you scan them up, they look like this. Inside our body, we also have sensors that literally can detect each other. The sperm smell the egg. The kidney have sensor. The entire surface of the skin can sense the surrounding. In some part of the world, smell still provide information about danger. Animals know this very efficiently. They smell each other long before they see each other. And then vision take over afterwards. Some indigenous still rely on their nose properly, and maybe they open their eyes, maybe not at all. Some politicians try, but not always mission is accomplished. So I started up a journey in the beginning of the 90s, literally putting my nose into everything. Being my own guinea pig was my purpose, and the field work was potentially coming on the other side and speaking about this invisible reality that determined who I was, how the world is, and beyond. So I conquered what I could at the early stage of my career and smelled myself through different micro, macro level of life. Having said that, my work is my body. My work is life and being alive. I could hardly see myself being an organic chemist, sitting in a lab, doing these experiments on rats and mouses, when I can use to create a platform called art, design, and the like, to pose the same questions towards humans and have the humans interact with my experiments. So literally taking the creative platform as my field, as my stage of doing experiments, bringing it back to research is what I do in my work. So here I'm smelling myself through the world, dressing down, dressing up, and there's no border where I can put my nose. And the issue of tolerance is a big issue in my work. You cannot go beyond skin color and religion. When the smell is not right, that's the end of the sympathy. So how can we educate mankind to go beyond these kind of notions? We have to start with educating other kids to see and understand and smell and touch the world in a different way. So these are research field trips I've done from 1990 to 1997, building up a major archive consisting of 7,000 smells from reality that literally are focusing on the issue of prejudices and also language and other topic. I'm not going to go into all those details in this very short presentation. So after 2004, I got approached by the industry that sit with all the knowledge and the devices of its kind. And I had access to this type of device that made me record reality with advanced technology on a micro level. So I was collecting smell molecules emitting from smell sources. Here, these molecules have been collected. This lab do the analysis for me, and what I get back are these kind of scans. So with this kind of information, I go to my lab in Berlin, consisting of 6,000 chemical compounds. I reproduce, replicate those recorded smells as close up to those realities as possible. So some micro project are going to show you how these smells then get displayed. This is a project about tolerance and fear in the US, started with the terrorism in the US. It's an MIT commission. There are replicated smell of anxious people, and the wall become a metaphor of a skin of a person. And you literally have to touch the wall, touch the skin of a person to release the smell. It caused a lot of disturbance, and some countries just love the project. And this is some result of people who really appreciated it. This is the walls in China when it was shown in Minsheng 21st Century Museum. So in the end, it became a wall of emotions. And the smells are pretty tough sometimes, but people react independent of bad and good. Memory is very, very connected to smell, and I've done a lot of research in terms of heritage and smell in the surrounding that can potentially help us understand issues like anthropology, archaeology, in a new way. So emotional artifacts is a big topic in my work, and that has also a lot to do with the ocean project. So this is the Cochin Biennale, where I analyzed the stones used in the boat to transport spices. We brought the stones to Bangalore, and we developed a technology that enabled us to bring the molecules from inside on the surface of the stone. And the audience then interacted with the stones and became amazing, amazing reactions. And all these objects are, or the stones are part of the Museum of Archaeology in India. So it's quite amazing what the smell can do. And another similar project is the Smellscape Melbourne, dealing with the indigenous past and trying to look into this devastating way that indigenous has been treated through the past and even present. And I tried to see, can a smell, emotional artifact, engage with this history in a different way? So we did a lot of segments from the earth and recreated, abstract artifacts that you literally had to engage with to understand the narrative and the story told behind it. And it became a pilgrim trip for indigenous from the very far north, came to Melbourne and appreciated this new approach to their past. So these are a previous project, and this is the biggest project I've taken on. The ocean is covering most of the planet. I've started off in Costa Rica, as supported by TBA 21, was amazing. I did the Caribbean in the El Nino's influence on the biodiversity. I did the Pacific, small research started there, and that became very big. And I went to Greenland last year. I'm going to Greenland in March again. So literally looking into the issue of the ocean and trying to trigger people to engage with it from a nano level, engaging people's emotion, I think is essential to understanding the problem. And learning in the context of play and joy is what smell accomplished so amazingly. And I think we need to take away all this rhetoric of fear and danger. It doesn't work anymore. So let's engage in new ways with the devices, the interface that we have for free called the senses. It doesn't cost much money. We change a little bit curriculum in our schools, and off we go, understanding the issues that surround us in a more proper way. So here I am, putting my nose into the ice. And this is New Zealand, and this is Australia. Last year, I had a research fellow at the Queensland University in Heron Island looking at the bleaching of corals. So what I do, I record all the smells, trying to look into the data, compare the data, look into what are the issues, and not only look at the data and provide science with all the data, micro level of the sea and the smell emitting from its different issues on the ocean, but I also look into how can I use this for further use. So these are images from my field trip in Sri Lanka, the beauty of the beach, and this is also another reality. In the Northwest, they make an attempt to collect the garbage, but it tends to kind of stay there, and they got other issues by having it kind of stay around for too long because they don't have a structure to pick up and separate the garbage properly. So I signed up a contract with a few of these people to start some initiatives and dock onto already existing platforms, which was a little bit what I was looking at fishermen and from the locals, how they relate to the ocean, what are those, it takes incredible amount of time to collect the molecules. But I spoke a lot to people, and I got their take on the issue of they had up there, being one fish instead of hundreds of fishes, and corals bleaching, and this is the fish net full of corals rather than fish, and mangrove plantage, a small initiative in the north, which was amazing, really impressed me, and they were watching this mangrove every day like they were small animals, amazing. And it's like, we need to change our relation to nature and the surrounding. We need to coexist with it, not just exist and think we are the only species on this planet that need to survive. So these are corals that are literally flocking up on the beach, and I try to collect some of the molecules and samples from all this, and these are some of the results. I have my travel lab with me, so the result will be on display. Recordings, and the next steps are then comparing the data and look into similarities of issues. And some of the projects have already been exhibited or shown. In this case, TBA 21 had a session with the Ocean Days. And these are smell artifacts triggering people to engage with issue in the ocean. So you have to take this object off the shell, engage with it at the size of your hand, and it's incredible what these small items can do. People cry when they smell plastic and a small abstract object. So what determines the shape of the objects is the structure of the molecule I've been collecting. So it's 3D printed, I feed it with the formula, and I get these objects out embedded with the nanotechnology. Having the smell embedded, it's quite amazing. This is a film, but we don't have to look into that. Education, I'm sorry, going over time. Yes, anyway, education is a big issue here. And I am doing a lot of workshops with children, trying to bring these issues across in a playful way, using the sense of smell is what this workshop's all about. And the result is amazing. And yeah, so this is my newest tool, Ocean Smellscape. Yeah, thank you very much. This is my fisherman from the Northwest that used the dead fish to tell the world the fishes are dying. So this fish was dead for a week. He was staying in the middle of the street and showing me this fish. By coincidence, it was stunning. I'll never forget the experience. I learned from him. He will learn from me. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Running slightly late, so I'm introducing quickly again Julieta Aranda, this time more as a visual artist, and also co-founder and co-editor of eFlux. We have worked together in the past on different projects, and a continuing interest in Julieta's work is to do with speculative storytelling, to do with the nature and characteristics of time, and also to integrate more sort of scientific knowledge into her projects in a way that she moves from the object to the hyper object and into very site-specific kind of works that include publishing, that include performativity, and also that actually happen in an episodic way. So we're going to now hear her talk about a project and research that she's been thinking about for a long time, and specifically around Kiribati. So we go to a different geography.
Hi, let's see, we move this to my height. Giselle is much taller than me. Okay, well, I'm showing you actually the research I have been doing about Kiribati, which is an archipelago in the South Pacific. Again, a little bit of reading. Zigzagging across the waters of the Pacific Ocean, the International Dateline, EDL, or IDL, is the imaginary line on the Earth that separates two consecutive calendar days and indicates the boundary line between today and tomorrow. Despite its name, however, the precise location of the international date line is not fixed by any international law, treaty, or agreement. Even today, no law proclaims that an international date line exists. Still, most globes and maps of the world include it. While it is most convenient for the dateline to be 180 degrees away from the defining meridian that goes to Greenwich, England, the international dateline can be anywhere on the globe. And so this is like some information about what the international dateline is. And I'm mentioning this because the way that I got to find out about Kiribati, or Kiribati actually would be the right way to mention it, is because this is a place that actually changed the location of the international dateline. And it's quite interesting because it's I mean, this little anecdote of that imaginary line changing shape made me think a lot about power and where power is. Because, of course, when we talk about power, we are thinking about might, force, and size. Yeah? And yet this place, actually, because they were split by the international dateline before, and it was causing problems for trading with Australia and in between themselves, because they only ended up sharing 3 weekdays, so it was creating some havoc in their, quotidianity. So they moved the international dateline. And it made me think about, okay, so that's a lot of power over the imaginary and power over a subjectivity of time. And, it's some kind of like feat that no show of force could achieve, in a sense. So what's interesting also is that this archipelago, which is threatened by disappearance because of the rising water levels, and that is, because of the way that cartography is and what gets placed at the center of the maps, they always fall off the map. They very rarely make it in because it's, it ends at the international dateline kind of thing. And yet the line makes it in, the islands don't. And it's quite interesting as to what is real and what is not real. So anyway, my research in the places started from that line. So I became completely obsessed with the shape. And I started thinking about time paradoxes and, what does it mean to live through a time paradox? What happens when you circumnavigate? What happened to that day? Because it's actually one of the very few real science fiction things that you can live through. If you do go around the world, and what happens to that day somehow? And that's the beginning of jet lag, right? And I think actually I started thinking about all this because I was stuck once on a flight going from Tokyo to New York that took off at sunset, and then for 11 hours we flew through sunset. I kept looking out the window, and the sun was setting, and the sun was setting, and the sun was setting. So it just, ever since I became kind of obsessed with this kind of time that leaks, time that is not fixed, that is not correct. And then it landed onto this line, and I started to work first on a sculpture around this shape, and trying to make walls out of the line, and trying to sort of think of this idea of, okay, so if we're if on the one side of the line is tomorrow, and on the other side is yesterday, where is today? And it made me think a lot about the tensions of how you say the tension, surface tension, let's say, and trying to constantly recalibrate yourself, because today would be actually just the very thin line in between those 2 days. It's something with almost no width, yeah, this sense of the present, let's say. Anyway, I started working with this line in a very just abstracted. And I've presented it in numerous occasions, made of several different materials. And so I kept working about the place, and I got more and more involved. I started researching more about Kiribati and more about these ideas of time. And at some point, I made a newspaper about Kiribati. Before I get to the newspaper, I was quite fascinated together. This is the image on the right is what the international dateline would end up looking at, this, this fuzzy boundary, this which became quite evocative for me as well. So anyway, I kept making work and thinking about Kiribati and thinking about that line. And at some point, when I made a newspaper about Kiribati or Kiribati, I keep saying Kiribati, but that's not correct. I ran into a piece of text which was a language lesson for the people that were going to Kiribati to do Peace Corps missions. And the language lesson, it's actually what made me think of going there, because it says something like, A, I don't understand. B, what don't you understand? A, I don't understand what you said. B, you don't understand what I said? A, right, what was what you said? B, when? A, what you asked me? B, what was it I asked you? A, I have forgotten it. B, you forgot it? A, yes, what was it? Don't you remember your question? B, I don't know, I don't. A, that's enough, it's no use, forget it, and thanks. B, okay, we'll forget it. You're welcome. And this kind of absurdity of like trying to learn a language when you cannot deal with a culture somehow is what made me realize that I was in a way committing the same mistake and dealing with a place only from my imagination, but it actually, I needed to go there. I had been already for years thinking about this place, and I had done some, I had done some research, and of course I knew about the, what the island looked like, and that there had been atomic tests conducted there, and in Christmas Island, and like the kind of, that it was a phosphate mine, and it was granted independence when it ran dry of phosphate, and they were like left to their own devices, and all these kinds of colonial atrocities, basically. But that's like the way that it looked like when they were fighting with the Japanese, and when they were having, like doing atomic testing, and like their little cheery celebrations for the H-bomb tests and so on. But however, what I was not prepared was to find the island still looking like that, yeah? Like there was a battle between, the Battle of Tarawa between the US and Japan, which basically was a disaster because this place is in the doldrums, so the tides are very, very low at certain points, and they stay low for a long time. Nobody calculated, so all the boats got stuck, and basically at the end of the day, everybody died, and they all went home. And what I was expecting to find there was just a little note that said, okay, I'm here, fought the brave soldiers of blah, blah, blah. Because they were not from Kiribati, yeah? They were people, Japanese and Americans, so I was like, why? So anyway, what happened is that, yes, they all went home, but they left their trash. So the island is still completely populated by these ghosts of history, and like this sense of the military trash, like this, which by now it's only used by children, yeah? And what it makes me think of is of, I mean, like when we talk about the World War, yeah, we keep applying like the notion of the world to this set of known powers, but in reality, for the people that are there, they are quite indifferent to these artifacts because they are simply not part of the registered history and of their cultural history. They're like some kind of like accidents there that only children play in. And so anyway, and something that also happened while I was there, I will show it to you at the end, is that I was looking through the coast and trying to see what I found, and I found something that just looked familiar, 16mm film that was on the ground, and I got quite excited, and I ended up very painstakingly rolling it and taking it with me. And the film, I mean, like, of course, there is no image there in the sense of like a recorded image, because whatever emulsion was there, of course, the sun, I mean, it was never developed, it was exposed to the sun, it was exposed to the elements. What you could see is and it was still in the broken body of a 16mm camera, what you could see were the rust of the rust from the camera metal, the green algae that were growing there, and the little bodies of the hermit crabs that were living these little spiral shapes. And I mean, like the film looks, don't tell me that I didn't leave a photo of that. No, I didn't. Okay, well, it looks kind of like that. These are like some strips that I have enlarged, and as I kept working around Kiribati and so on, these are more, yeah, that's the way that the film looks, actually. I do have a close-up image. And yeah, what I wanted to do, actually, I mean, like, and what this made me think of, like the rust of the algae and so on, it made me think about a passive recording of, it makes me think of a camouflage pattern, yeah? Like, so it's a little bit like a passive recording of war in the absence of human actors, let's say, you know? Like how is the world, how is the surrounding registering our conflict, and you know, like the kind of effect that it has. And of course, this is a piece of film, but it has a large, that kind of reading can be applied to just about any surrounding that we have. And what I wanted to do is, if I have a minute or so, I wanted to show you, I'm trying to speak very fast so that I can show you a little bit of the film. So let's see, I escaped from here, and I escaped also from here. It's all in German, which I should know, but I don't. Do you want to close it? And I just want to show this. Now this keeps going because it was a 400 feet spool of film, and that's about 10 minutes. So I think you get the idea of what the film looks like. The final thing that I want to do is show you actually what the coastline, where I found it. That one.
This is old film, 16 millimeter film.
I was quite excited when I found it. It's like something again about, how do I get out of there? No, just finish. I mean, like, it's like something about like, you know, making visible and making material like sets of ideas. So that was kind of like the materiality of finding that 16 millimeter film stranded on the beach somehow, you know. And I guess that's it for me.
Our next presentation is actually film work by the duo Inhabitants, who are based in New York, Mariana Silva and Pedro Nieves Marquez. They often work with activists, with scientists, particularly marine conservationists in the research that and the films that they're going to be showing today. The 3 episodes which have been commissioned by TBA 21 Academy that have to do with deep sea mining, and that feels like a very important issue for us to actually engage with in Sri Lanka as a sort of possible future sort of vertical kind of dealing with the coast in a sort of vertical violence, really, and excavating parts of the island in a way that might prove disastrous. But we're going to actually see this from a different vantage point, which is through their more exploratory documentary approach through 2 specific episodes. I'll just read a little bit. Episode 1, from What is Deep Sea Mining, which is going to be not 3 but 5 episode web series. Tools for Ocean Literacy and Deep Frontiers, plays with Charles and Ray Eames' 1977 film Powers of 10, which many of you may have seen. And it's a historical and geographical introduction to deep sea mining, with an introduction written by anthropologist Stefan Helmreich. We're also going to premiere the 3rd episode, which focuses on the case of the Portuguese Azores archipelago, following European Union plans to mine in the region, and is a result of a series of interviews with marine biologists and politicians conducted in the islands. I forgot to mention that we are actually live streaming this program, so we also have a virtual audience watching with us today. And you must be wondering why we don't have Q&A, but we do have breaks. One break will be just after this. So our thoughts were that maybe we could engage in more informal conversation during the breaks, because we're going to come back and then continue in more conversational form, have one more lecture, and then a music recital. So we'll now go into the film, and then there's a short break.
Modern oceanography's first images of the seabed from the 19th century were drawn from a collection of points, obtained by dropping a weighted instrument from a ship.
The deep sea.
Before modern oceanography, in the West, the seabed was believed to be flat and lifeless. Sonar technology perfected during the Second World War expanded our understanding of the seabed. Sonar helped render an image of the deep sea in 3 dimensions. The first maps of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean's rifts, ridges, and plateaus helped validate the theory of plate tectonics and continental drift, barely a decade before humankind set foot on the moon.
The deep sea. We still know less about the ocean floor than we know about the moon or Mars. Around 500 people have gone to space, while only 3 have reached the ocean's deepest point.
Today, the mapping of the seas is done from a vertical axis that combines geostationary satellites and submersibles.
The deep sea is a new frontier. It is only recently that we have begun to contact its inhabitants, forms of life utterly alien to us at the surface.
The technology that assists us in this process has extended vertically, both into the atmosphere and into the bottom of the ocean.
This is our alien planet, but is not a flatland anymore.
The United Nations have declared the 2020s to be the decade of ocean science for sustainable development. But the International Seabed Authority, which regulates and supervises exploration of the ocean floor in international waters, has already leased concessions, despite the fact that legislation is still being drafted.
The deep sea is a new frontier of resource extraction. Deep sea mining companies aim to extract minerals and metals such as manganese, cobalt, gold, copper, iron, and other rare earth elements from the seabed.
Hydrothermal vents, resembling small underwater volcanoes, were discovered in 1977. Despite water temperatures reaching up to 350 degrees Celsius, a single vent can harbor unique endemic species. These animals can convert toxic chemicals into energy, revealing themselves to be complex life forms. Some microbiologists see hydrothermal vents as central to research on the origins of life on Earth. Hydrothermal vents are just one of various types of geological formations where deep-sea mining is set to take place. Other targets are the cobalt-rich seamount crusts and the polymetallic manganese nodules spread along the ocean floor.
The deep sea is a new frontier of resource extraction.
The heavy machinery and the dredging techniques applied in mining will create plumes of unpredictable consequences and deeply impact underwater ecosystems formed over millennia.
The deep sea.
This is our alien planet, but it is not flatland anymore. From Papua New Guinea to New Zealand, Tonga and Fiji in the Pacific, to the Portuguese Azores Islands in the Atlantic, advocacy groups are raising awareness about the insufficiency of regulation and the lack of transparency in the negotiation of deep-sea mining concessions.
Os Açores são um arquipélago de 9 ilhas vulcânicas situadas a meio do Atlântico e parte do território português. As ilhas localizam-se no encontro entre as placas tectónicas americana, euroasiática e africana. Dada a sua geomorfologia e biodiversidade, os Açores são um importante local para estudar a ecologia do mar profundo no Norte Atlântico e no que toca à conservação marinha. A Zona Económica Exclusiva Portuguesa é a 20ª mais ampla do mundo, com cerca de 1.727 milhões de quilómetros quadrados e uma área 18 vezes superior ao território nacional. Recentemente, debate-se a possibilidade de existir mineração em mar profundo ao largo das ilhas.
O que é que faz dos Açores uma zona tão especial em termos de geomorfologia que mantém toda esta fauna marinha e toda esta diversidade genética?
Bom, a dorsal mesoatlântica, o facto de estarmos aqui situados mesmo em cima dela, é uma mais-valia para a diversidade de habitats do mar profundo. E com isso temos uma enorme diversidade de montanhas submarinas, mais de 450 estão mapeadas, e portanto os animais que gostam realmente de zonas muito profundas têm habitat para eles, mas também todas as outras espécies, até mais costeiras, também encontram habitat nesses montes submarinos.
E o meu foco de estudo e de investigação vai mais para os ambientes quimiosintéticos. Os ambientes quimiosintéticos são lugares de mar profundo, normalmente na zona de encontro entre placas oceânicas, em que o movimento das placas origina que o magma e gases reajam com a água do mar, dando origem a fontes hidrotermais. Em vez de acontecer a fotossíntese, dá-se a quimiossíntese. A quimiossíntese é a obtenção de energia e produção de matéria orgânica a partir da reação de espécies reduzidas de metano, de enxofre, desses gases e partículas que se formam num ambiente quimiosintético.
A verdade ou a realidade é que sempre que fazemos uma nova expedição ao mar profundo dentro das ilhas dos Açores, é normal nós encontrarmos habitats novos, ecossistemas novos e às vezes ou muitas vezes espécies novas e, como recentemente aconteceu, até uma fonte hidrotermal nova. Bom, a maioria dos campos hidrotermais nos Açores localiza-se ao longo da crista média atlântica, principalmente na zona sul e sueste dos Açores. Existem vários conhecidos, nomeadamente o Lucky Strike, o Management e o Rainbow, que já fica fora da Zona Económica Exclusiva dos Açores, mas dentro daquilo que agora se chama a Plataforma Continental Estendida de Portugal.
Se nós olharmos para a Convenção das Nações Unidas sobre o Direito do Mar, a Plataforma Continental é um dos conceitos que lá está. E está previsto que os países têm direito a alargar a sua soberania na chamada Plataforma Continental. E há riquezas, obviamente, porque nisto tudo há interesses económicos, mas também haverá obrigações, porque há potencial de recursos genéticos, há potencial de recursos minerais. Enquanto na Zona Económica Exclusiva, coluna de água e solo e subsolo marinho, o país tem a soberania total sobre os recursos e os direitos sobre esses recursos, no questão da Plataforma Continental, qualquer exploração que seja feita de recursos minerais ou genéticos tem que ser partilhado com a humanidade, numa determinada proporção.
Que transformações é que a mineração em mar profundo pode trazer?
A mineração do mar profundo ainda é um cenário hipotético, portanto, na realidade não sabemos bem quais são as transformações que podem advir da exploração do mar profundo, nomeadamente nos Açores. Aquilo que nós temos conhecimento é que a exploração poderá vir a ter algum impacto do ponto de vista ambiental, essencialmente pela remoção do substrato que implica a própria exploração mineral, depois impacto pelas plumas de sedimentos que a exploração mineral poderá criar, impacto por causa do ruído que poderá ser gerado nas zonas de exploração mineral, impacto por causa da vibração e da luz e até pela possível ou potencial libertação de produtos tóxicos para a água.
Eu penso que terá algum impacto, especialmente se for numa zona próxima às ilhas. Nós temos muitos cetáceos que vêm de sul para norte descansam, utilizam toda esta zona, não só na proximidade das ilhas, mas também em redor, e a mineração vai causar alguns distúrbios em termos de som, da alteração do som do oceano, que é um meio fundamental para a comunicação destes animais.
A preocupação com a resiliência dos habitats do mar profundo vem já de algumas décadas, quando a mineração se tornou mais eminente. Há um caso de estudo muito interessante que ainda está em curso, que começou nos anos 70, numa zona do Pacífico, ao largo do Peru, onde existem nódulos polimetálicos enriquecidos em manganês, onde foram efetivamente utilizadas dragas que se utilizam para arar a terra para dragar o fundo, portanto, e simular um efeito de uma extração de um minério. O certo é que os papers vão revelar que as esponjas e os corais que foram partidas não estão de volta 30 anos depois.
Estes minerais e estes metais pesados que possam vir a ser extraídos numa futura mineração são a razão pela qual algumas bactérias se fixam nesses locais. Por exemplo, o ferro no Rainbow. Neste campo hidrotermal existem bactérias que oxidam o ferro e que desta maneira conseguem produzir matéria orgânica para a restante comunidade. Se formos extrair o ferro, vamos extrair com ele as comunidades que oxidam o ferro neste sítio e que estão na base da cadeia trófica.
Nós sabemos que as minas cada vez estão mais complexas, estão mais profundas, mas a ideia de que o cobre é de uma necessidade absoluta por causa das novas redes em países emergentes como a China, a Índia, etc., vai necessitar de mais cobre. Ou seja, o cobre que existe nos depósitos terrestres, não. Mas eu acho que isso é um mito industrial. A outra coisa que se sabe é que criar uma mina, começar a exploração mineral no mar profundo, tem que ser encarada com o prejuízo que pode dar às atividades que são comerciais e que são realidade. A outra não é realidade nenhuma ainda. É uma cobiça, eventualmente, é um sonho que o valor do minério pode não ter grande benefício para o país ou a região onde ele é explorado.
Now we're going to have a very short break, 10 minutes, no more, and then have the many-headed hydra do a reading.